The name's Pell. Nick Pell. Hello once again, watchers of Good TV. My name is Nick Pell, and this is once again coming from my college dorm. Now, today I'm going to be talking about the TV show Chuck. This is a show which came off the air in 2012, the very beginning of 2012, but I did not start watching it until this last summer. I started it in June and I've now completed it on Netflix. So, I'm going to talk about it. This will be generally a complete series review, so there will be very big spoilers in this review. Just so you know, going into this, I will talk about just the general idea of the show beforehand, so if you have not seen the show and you just want to know if it's worth your time or not, you can watch about the first few minutes and then I'm going to get into spoiler stuff. Chuck is a show which stars Zachary Levi as Chuck Bartowski. He's an average guy who works at the local Buy More as a nerd herder. Basically, that is an electronics expert, and he works with his best friend Morgan Grimes, played by Joshua Gomez, and they have just been best friends forever. And then one day, his ex-roommate Bryce Larkin sends Chuck a computer program called the Intersect, and Chuck opens the email and he gets the Intersect downloaded into his brain, and that's how his soul spy life begins. The show is generally a transformation for Chuck. It basically shows him from a very weak beginning into a full-fledged spy who can do things without the Intersect and can basically... He is one of the best spies around by the end of it. Alongside him are his partners Sarah Walker and John Casey, played by Yvonne Strahovski and Adam Baldwin, and they do a very nice job in their roles. Everyone in the show is phenomenal in their roles. They all kind of capture the characters really well, they set the mood, and they're just really good actors overall. Chuck's sister and her boyfriend, who then becomes her fiance and husband, nicknamed Captain Awesome, they're both a huge part of the show. They're both very significant pieces to it, and they're both really cool characters. And the last two kind of main characters who are always credited in the intro is Jeff and Lester. These are two kind of screw-up guys who work at the Buy More with Chuck and Morgan, and they are two people who would not have their jobs in any other situation, but for some reason they just can slack off and do whatever they want, be very disrespectful to customers, and they're fine. So they're very comical. They're kind of the comedic appeal of the show, and it's very cool to see what becomes of them. So that's about all I'm going to say for the general review. Overall, definitely check out Chuck. It's one of my favorite shows at this point. It had 5 seasons of a run. It could potentially get a movie at some point via Veronica Mars type style. But who's to say? Definitely check it out. The whole series is on Netflix, so it's well worth your time if you're gonna go do that. So from this point forward, I'm going to be talking about the whole series as a whole. Spoilers everywhere. So if you're not finished watching Chuck from beginning to end, probably stop watching here. Now the premise of the show is something which I really enjoy. Just the fact that an average guy named Chuck just is able to transform into this spy, this ultimate spy, both with the power of the Intersect, in which he uses to basically become a spy, and then also when he loses it towards the end of the show, and he just has to rely on his own abilities, and then he is just as good as Sarah and Casey by that point, and that's really cool to see. I also liked Morgan Grimes' transformation because he, in my opinion, changes the most of any of these characters throughout the show. He starts out as just kind of a runt. He is just kind of the best friend who's kind of a goof off and doesn't really know what he's doing. He's just an average worker. And then by the end of the show, he is the manager of the Buy More. He has a girlfriend, and he is more or less a spy alongside Chuck, Sarah, and Casey. And he, in my opinion, he's just the one who changes the most in this whole show. And so he was really cool to see go through all those transformations. The music in this show is phenomenal, by the way, especially Big Mike's theme. I don't know if that's an actual track or not, but he always has this very interesting song which comes on whenever he's about to be shown for the first time in an episode, and I really always like that. The general music for the show, the action scene music, the lovey-dovey music, it all works really well. It sets the tone really well, and I just really enjoyed the soundtrack for the show. Now, in my opinion, the best season of the 5 is season 3 for me, and that's mainly because of Daniel Shaw. He is probably my favorite villain in this show, just for the simple fact that he begins his season as a good guy. He is a good spy, he is the leader, he knows what he is doing, he is very loyal to the CIA, all that stuff. But we learn right away that he has lost his wife. His wife has been killed and he's trying to figure out who did it. He assumes that it is the organization, the Ring, that has committed this. And then, about halfway through the season, he learns that Sarah, on her Red mission or whatever they called it, she killed Shaw's wife, and we never really learned why she did this. We just know the CIA had her kill Shaw's wife, and that drives Shaw crazy, and he basically tries to kill Sarah, and then he ends up being a servant of the Ring and almost taking over the CIA. It's just really interesting to see his transformation from a pure good guy who helps train Chuck and get him prepared to be an actual spy, up to the point where he and Chuck are going at it, intersect versus intersect, and just trying to take each other out. And it's just, I don't know, that season was just really good for me. It helped to develop Sarah and Chuck's relationship as well, because that is the season where they really start to get close, and they also start to date at that point, towards the end of the season. And I don't know, overall that season was just probably my favorite one, just for a numerous amount of reasons. Season 5, the final one, is probably my second favorite, because partly the mid-season finale had Shaw return for an episode, which I really got excited about, and then just the overall feel of the show, especially the ending where they just flip-flopped everything, was really cool. I also liked how in Season 5, Jeff is not an idiot anymore, because that was something which always kind of bugged me about seasons 1 through 4, and then he finds out, oh hey, if I stop sleeping in my car, I'm actually somewhat smart. And so it's really cool to see Lester deal with that, as well as seeing Jeff's new behavior and seeing him kind of figure out that Sarah, Chuck, and Casey are spies alongside Morgan, and I thought that was just a really interesting idea. One thing that did bug me a tad, it didn't ruin the show by any means for me, but it just kind of was something which always kind of annoyed me, is that Alex didn't really have a huge reason for being in the show. I know she's Casey's daughter and she ends up being Morgan's girlfriend, but overall she's barely in the show at all in the last few seasons. And when she is, she's basically just a side issue for Casey and Morgan to kind of deal with. Overall, I didn't really think that Alex was really needed. I liked her as a character and an actor, but I didn't think that she was a huge necessity for the show. Okay, so now I'm going to be getting into the series finale for Chuck. So if you have not gotten to that point, stop watching again. So I'm just letting you know where I'm going to be going with this. So, in the series finale of Chuck, Sarah Walker has lost her memory due to putting the intersect into her head. It is the glitchy version that Morgan had, and it has caused her to lose her memories thanks to Nicholas Quinn, and she is now working for him, and it's just a very interesting situation. It's very sad to see Chuck deal with that. He basically loses his wife, he loses the woman that he has been getting to know, who he has been wooing, who he has fallen in love with for the last 5 seasons. In an instant, and it's really tough to see that, especially when Chuck brings her to their house, the nice red door, white house, white picket fence type of house that they want, and he tries to reignite her memory, and it just doesn't work until she sees the carving on the post, and even that doesn't really trigger too much. And it's just very sad to see Chuck just lose hope in this cause, which is Sarah. So for a while I was very confused as to why the episode, the penultimate episode, was called Chuck versus Sarah, because I just read the little description of it and it didn't really seem like there was anything huge happening. And now I see that it really is Chuck versus Sarah, and it's very heart-wrenching to see. But eventually Sarah does figure out that she has been manipulated, and she does help out Chuck, Casey, and Morgan, but she still has no memory of anything, and she does not have feelings for Chuck any longer. And that was just it's just a really sad thing to see, and it almost erases everything romantically which happened in the last 5 seasons. And that was something which kind of annoyed me, because while I really respect the show for putting in that twist where it seems like everything is going to be great after this one last mission, and then everything goes to hell, which normally are things that I like with the darkness of that, I really wanted something of a happy ending for these two after these 5 seasons. I really like the callbacks to the first season as well, especially like the first episode that they did with Wienerlicious, and the first way that Chuck figured out to defuse a bomb, and just all those types of quirky things. They helped kind of lighten the mood, and bring back some of the cool stuff that happened in those first seasons. Then Jeffster ends up going on tour after playing a random show at a orchestra hall, and so that is kind of putting them away from the Buy More and putting them into a position that they've always wanted to be in, is touring on stage and the country and becoming famous. So if we ever do see some more of Chuck, well, it'll be kind of interesting to see what's happening with those two at this point. The episode ends in a cliffhanger. The series ends in a cliffhanger. We have Chuck and Sarah, they're sitting on the beach, and Chuck is telling Sarah their stories, basically recounting all the events which have happened over the last 5 seasons between the two of them. And we see them in kind of a flashbacking montage. And then he decides to kiss Sarah. And the episode ends with them kissing on the beach. And we don't know if this ignites Sarah's memory or if it doesn't work at all. And it will be really interesting for me personally to know what happens after this. I don't know if the creators have any sort of plan for that, if Zachary Levi had any sort of idea, but I would like to know kind of what ends up happening between these two. So those are my thoughts on the series Chuck. It is, like I said before, this is now one of my favorite shows. It is comedic, it is action-packed, it is drama-packed, it has very huge sad moments which cause me to tear up a lot, and it's just really interesting. I could get into a whole lot more stuff, but I don't have the time to do that. So, if you want to know my thoughts on anything regarding Chuck, the show, or anything about the characters or what have you, leave them in the comments down below, and I will be more than happy to discuss it with you. Also, let me know what you thought of Chuck as a show down in the comments as well. Did you like it more than I did? Did you hate it more than I did? Let me know. Also, like, favorite, comment, and subscribe, my good people. Once again, if you so choose, I'd appreciate it immensely. And as always, my name is Nick Pell. And once again, keep on watching.